So if you guys have a little ramekin, or if you want to use your stencils to fool around with this one here, you can play around with your metallics if you want. Like my black design is with this one here, but I did use the round brush on it and the liner. So in this next one here, I want to show you a little bit more with the round brush. Okay, so you can just use, like I said, a small ramekin. And then what I like to do too is you have these little openings, right? So if you can make your circle all the way around if you want to. But with my design, if you notice, the C's are coming around this way. So you can just do a C, right? So where do you want it to be opening out? Okay, so give it a little bit of a space there. And then you're going to put your ramekin right beside. And depending on how much room you have or how big your ramekin is, I've even actually used, if you want to make them a little bit smaller, you can even use your floating medium bottle. Okay, so again, it depends on how big you want to make them. You just got to get creative, guys, on what you want to use. Okay, so it's usually always easier to practice bigger and then tighten them up later. Okay. So if you have room for 4, you can put 4, or if you want to just do 2, so you have one opening coming this way, and then you have this one coming this way. And then again, we're going to try to be reasonably straight, unless you are trying to make a little bit more of a curl. Like, okay, so this design, if you want to do corner to corner on a canvas, you know, a nice straight line, you know, you want to try and line these up so that they are straight. But there's no rules, right? This is all free form style, and you know, you can definitely, you know, play around with them and get different looks and see what you like. So I usually try not to press too hard with my pencil, so then it's a lot easier to erase, guys. Okay, so I am pushing a little bit harder so that it shows up so you guys can see my guide. Okay. So with our round brush, it's very similar to what we're doing with our liner brush, except for we have a little fatter liner brush. All right. So the nice thing about these is that you can have a little bit more pounce in your step. My yucky practice paper back here again. All right. So you definitely want to dampen your brush a little bit. If it's not been used for a while, it's all dry, just dampen it with some water. And then if you're also running out of paint over here, guys, definitely, you know, keep adding more paint and adjusting and adding more water a little at a time as you need it. Okay, so I'm definitely running out of Pablo. My white's okay. All right, squeegee that out so you're not wasting that. And then even if you have one of these palette knives too, these are pretty handy for squeegeeing out that paint so you're not wasting it. Gotta give it a little press, and then that'll take a lot of it out of your brush, because you really want to clean it now so that we can get that white on the other side. Right, so unless you want to keep adding drops of water with your palette knife and stir things around with that, you can too. All right, so we're going to find some clean white, come over into our Pablo. All right, nice and double loaded with that flip-flop style again. So you'll notice when you push down with this, again, depending on how much moisture you have in your brush, okay, you can get it a little bit fatter, daisy strokes.
Did you switch to the 8, Mandy?
Yep, 8 round brush.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So you definitely want to have it good and loaded and lots of moisture if you're going to drag that stroke really long. Okay, so you need a little bit more moisture than normal. Almost like curlicue. Right, and then again, you can practice a few nestling. Pick up dark on the top. Okay, so you see how if I just turn my brush around, I'll get a lighter color. I want dark, light, dark. Or you can do light, dark, light. You know, change it up a little bit. Okay, so you'll see the more moisture I have in my brush, and it's really going to be translucent, I can really push down and get some really fat strokes. All right, so again, it's all about pressure. You want to do really thin ones you can. Okay, and then you have your little chisel on the corner to drag it through. Okay, so you're going to push and pop it up and give it a little bit of a tail. Flip it and nestle it right in there, about 2/3. 2/3 is a nice amount. Sometimes I forget to turn my brush around too. But if you got a nice contrast going on and you like that nice soft color, you can always do the lighter version. And then this is where it makes it unique, is that you're going to do these big fat strokes with the round brush, but then you're going to come back in with your liner brush and you're going to do some of those dances in with those, right? So that really helps to give it a little bit more contrast than trying to do that style with just all liner brush. Okay, so you're getting nice fat ones and you're getting some really nice skinny ones. Okay, so that's basically what all this design is put together in. Okay, so we always start with our biggest strokes where your main foundation of things are. Right, so you're going to pick up whatever color you want to start with, right? And then we have an area where it's going to open in the C, the backward C, and then come in. So you can come a little bit on each side of the line, guys. This is just a guide to keep you going around in a circle. Okay, so if you want to do a big one over here to start, put that in there, and then follow along your line. Put in another one right beside it if you like, just with two. So remember with your moisture, guys, your brush will really spread out on you. So when you really want to try and make that smaller stroke, you got to really watch your pressure. Okay, so we have our C going this way, and then we can do another big one over here. Okay, so they don't have to join, but you've got your base of your big C's there. Okay, so then we're going to come down and add again the structure of our second one. Okay. And again, we can put two in there for now. Up. And pull it through. And try to keep my head out of things. Sometimes I have to get my head in there for the left-handed strokes. Okay, so again, 3 times, right? So they're all going to be very similar in a way. They're going to be in the same kind of flow because you're putting the main structure here all in the same flow, like you're in that mood and you get them all done. Because if you're doing a long border, guys, and you don't get your main structure down, then by the time you get to the end of the wall or whatever you're working on, they may be different size or different amount of color. So again, it's just to have that same flow and rhythm in them. Okay, you can get that main structure. Right. And then having those little markers with your pattern is going to help guide you too, so that they're all the same size, especially when you're doing something that's repetitive and it keeps going down, and to have that little bit of a pattern to help you. Okay, so I could probably do this design so easy without having my circles down, but I know for sure by the time I get down to the bottom of my pattern, they're all going to be different sizes. Right, so even I need that little bit of guidance sometimes to keep me spread out evenly. Okay. So we can start adding a few big ones on the outside, and we're going to join those two together. Okay. And again, try to make them a little bit smaller. Smaller, curling them in there. Got lots of moisture in my brush, so. Okay, and again, I'm going to put this one coming in that way. And then now you're starting to join a little bit more. Okay, so these are just little small guys. Okay, so I tried to give you a couple of step ones there, part 1 and part 2 in your PDF, so that you can see the main big ones that I put on, and then everything else that I did a little bit extra as little extra bonuses. All right, so we can definitely go into adding a little bit more if you want, or just throwing one in here. Okay. Just one little curly one in there. Add that in there, and then we're going to change over to our liner brush. I'm not even looking at my old pattern, so this could be slightly different if you guys are looking for stroke on my original. This one here was done with all liners. Okay, so you'll see it's a lot slimmer. Alright, so this is all liner done with this one. Okay, but I'm kind of multitasking, trying to teach you guys a little bit more about these other strokes in this one. Okay. Definitely load up your liner brush again, and then find your little extreme curls here. So if you want to start off with just these simple ones, you can always do those. Unless you want to make them all really, really curly, then you can definitely start from the outside. Okay, so you're going to definitely go out and then curl it in so that you can punch it out. That sounds so mean. Alright, so I'm just running out of room here, so I just curled that one in there. Okay, so it's all about learning techniques, right? So again, if you want to have a little bit more of a curly one on the inside, pull in from the outside, make your little curl, and then stop. And then put your little curl. Okay, so hopefully you're going to have it wisp in a little bit nicely. The nice fine little starting. Okay, so you want to definitely start light on your touch and then start pushing and pulling out. So the more you have your light pressure and then you pop up a little bit thicker and then you end really, really thin, that's going to give you even a really more dramatic little curl, because you have those thick areas, and you can even push a little bit more, right in here, and then pop up on your chisel to have it a little bit thinner again, so that you have all those different degrees of pressure through your little strokes. Okay, so they don't just look like a fine little line like that. Okay, so the more you play with your liner brush, the more you're going to get really cool dimensions with your little curls. Okay, so again, just playing around with, something quick to show you guys. And show you all the different brush sizes. Okay, so you see how I went a little bit thicker here. It popped up thinner. I'm gonna bump you up, guys, a little bit more at a time. In and out. Push that a little bit more. A little more paint on my brush. If you feel like you're comfortable that way, you can always pull it out that way. Try to keep my head out of it. And so you definitely want that little tiny punch there, guys. Brush, and then pull it in. You have to go over it again. And then, of course, you can always add little dots. You can make this as extravagant and simple as you want. Okay, so the one I did with the gold is more like this one with the round brush and the liner with the little accents. Okay, so this is where you can always put in, a little bit more thinner strokes in with your thicker ones. Play with it a little bit more with those little thin little pop-ups. And then you can put your little joins in here too. That's just like 3 little lines here, guys. 2, sometimes I put just 2, sometimes I'll put 3. So you want them to be a little bit bigger than the next guy. So small, medium, and large. Okay, so you're gonna, depending on how you feel, like if you only have room that 2 might only look good, then just put 2. If you feel like you have more room, then put 3. Okay, so sometimes 2 is a little bit more dainty too. That's way too big. Okay, so just little tiny dainty ones. Like I said, I'd have to look exactly at my sheet the whole time to copy it 100%, because every time I do this, it's going to look a little bit different. Okay? Depending on where you want to put your dots. Okay? Sometimes I put them on the outside, sometimes I put them on the inside. I'm just going crazy, guys, and just showing you lots of ideas right now. Okay? Right in here's another good spot if you wanted to put some dots, wherever you had a bigger area. Okay. Right at the base of these little curlicues, or right in the curlicue, right? So there's a lot of places that you can tuck these little dots. Okay, so normally you don't want to go too dot crazy, but like I said, just play around and see how you feel about them, or maybe you don't know until you try it, right? And if you're working on a canvas, it's really easy to erase them if you don't like them. But the cardstock, just keep playing and forgive yourself if you have a little bit of messiness or whatever that you don't like. All right, and then when you're done your design and it's all dry, then you go in and erase whatever pencil marks you have showing. And hopefully, if you touch the pencil with your paint, like I did right here, the paint is still showing a little bit of pencil. I can't erase it. Okay, so just realize that when you're doing your stroke work, guys, to also make sure you're paying attention a little bit to have that extra little paint in your brush, and just try to cover it a little bit better. I'm making a mess. But just know that if you don't have enough coverage, your pencils are going to show through, and you won't be able to erase them. Okay, so that's why I said just your starter lines have to be just very, very, very light. So then that way you hardly see them at all, and then you won't have to worry about your paint covering your pencil that you can't erase. Okay, so wherever paint is translucent, I gotta give you guys that heads up. Okay, so make sure that you make it really, really, really fine and light, and wait till your paint dries. Who else want to show me anything? Donna's showing me her work there too. Oh, you got the gold out. Good. All right. So again, like I said, you can use a bowl if you want to do the circle one. And just, like I said, I often will just, wherever I want that opening, I won't put the full circle. And I also gave you guys a couple other really fun designs. There are pictures of this too. This one here, right? So again, you're just doing it more like a tree, or this could look like underwater if you wanted to make it look like uh, underwater grass or weeds or something like that. You can play around with scroll work, and I just added some fun dots to make illusion of some sort of leaf or flower, because a lot of the old Renaissance styles of scroll work is more about illusion than it was about accuracy, with having the actual flowers to look like they do, right? So you can see some of them up here are a little bit more pointy up here. Okay, and then so you can definitely fool around with your stroke work a little bit more. Definitely with different brushes. So some of them will give you that extra little point depending on how you press down and pull through with your brush. Okay, so I'm still with my round brush here, and I just need to water down some of this Pablo. That's a nice consistency here. And you can even just, like I said, play around with just one color if you want. Okay, so if you pull down with a little bit more of a point, pull through as your top of your leaf, and you can always add a couple thicker strokes right beside it, and they'll look like little leaves popping out too. So you can do like your little patterns. You can just do a loose S kind of movements like that, right? If you want to be precise, then definitely having something that you can measure, right? Because you can see that I made this one big one, this one's going to be smaller, right? So you're not going to be really consistent if you don't measure things out for on the long scale. But if you're just looking for something really fun and loose, then just give yourself a little fun S kind of formation, and just to show you that you can make them on the way out too. You put that point out, right? And then you can pull some in. Okay, so some people like to do more of a scroll kind of leaf. You can definitely play around with those as well. And then pop in your liner brush and add your little extra scrolls with them and play around. Okay, so you can do that punch and then really light pop up on your chisel with your round brush to get that same kind of effect, to have some of those really loose ones. Okay, so some of them might be a little bit thicker and a little smoother, right? And then some of them are going to have that little punch and then pull right up on that chisel so that you can get around things. And that's what's going to give you that space so that you can come right around and add another little ones inside it. Okay. Sometimes I'll start with two and then I'll decide to add another one right behind it. Right, so you can play around. So there is a way of doing this extra one that I gave you too, is going to be a lot more advanced, and that's where you're tucking that little bit lighter stroke on top of a dark one. Okay, and feathering that around, and it's layering it right on top, and it looks like this is all connected into one, and it's going to show you that flip. Okay. You're doing a little bit of a darker one. Then I'm coming in with my lighter side up. Okay, and you're coming right out in front of it. You're pressing down, popping up, and then hiding that right behind it. Hopefully you guys can see that. Okay, so the more that you dramatically come out in front of it, and then pop up on your chisel so you're nice and thin coming around. And you don't even have to go to the same point. You can just tuck in halfway through, just come in and then right there if it's nice feathering out and blending it into it. Okay, so you're having this dark area underneath, Okay, so you see how I just added the dark in there to show you effects. So the darker you can have this one look, the more this is going to pop up like it's flipping up underneath and out. Okay, so sometimes you can even just load that one color, right? If you're really having a hard time getting the dark, just load that one color, get that dark in there. Then come in and pick up your whites up, and then up in front, and then kind of feather it right in there. Oops. Hopefully my head's not in the way, guys. Okay, so can you see that I actually ended before the point? Okay, so I could have followed that all the way through, but sometimes just stopping right there at the third area. So if you put this in quarters or thirds, right? So I'm in about the 1/3, 2/3. Right? So I'm ending before the point. Okay, so I definitely like doing this little extra bonus area here of this flip with the round brush. So I'm just kind of want to show you everything you guys are going to be able to do with your round brush. Right? Get real comfortable with that round brush. And now you're going to add that little extra flip in there. But it does help if you have some colors down here too. So you just want it to be dominantly dark. Okay? Your dark is up. And if you have a few traces of a little bit of light in there, it's actually quite nice. Right? Then you're going to have your white up. Hopefully my head's not in the way. Because I do have to put my head in this one. Right? And then stop about third. Yeah. So once you start playing around with a design, it'll start to make a little bit more sense.